I didn't know his name when I walked into that hotel room. I didn't know anything except that my boss had made a mistake with the booking, that the conference was overbooked, and that I somehow had been assigned to share a suite with a business associate who'd arrived late from Milan. My boss, Gerald, had stammered through the explanation in the lobby, his face red and damp with sweat. "It's just one night, Claire. The man is important. Very important. Just keep your head down. Don't ask questions. You'll have your own room tomorrow." I should have fought harder. I should have demanded a refund, a different hotel, anything. But I was 24, still new to the corporate world, still afraid of being difficult. So I nodded. I took the key card. I dragged my suitcase across the marble lobby of the Hotel Opera in Milan, my heels clicking too loud, my heart climbing into my throat. When I opened the door to room 918, I froze. The suite was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a sleek black sofa, a glass table, and in the center of the far wall, beneath a chandelier that looked like it cost more than my car, one bed, a king-sized bed, draped in charcoal silk. I stood there, staring, my pulse hammering. Behind me, the door clicked shut. I spun around. He stood in the doorway to the bathroom, a towel slung low on his hips, his chest bare and still damp from the shower. Water dripped from his dark hair onto his shoulders, broad, carved, dangerous shoulders. His eyes found mine immediately. They were the color of smoke and steel, cold and impossibly steady. He didn't move, didn't speak. Neither did I. I don't know how long we stood there. 5 seconds, 10. Long enough for my breath to catch, for heat to crawl up my neck, for every instinct in my body to scream run. But I didn't. "You must be the conference assistant," he said finally. His voice was low, accented Italian, but smooth, controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to command a room. I swallowed. Claire Dawson." He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he hadn't expected. Then he reached for a black shirt draped over the back of a chair and pulled it on, buttoning it slowly, deliberately. His eyes never left mine. Dante Salvatore. The name meant nothing to me then. It should have. "There's been a mistake," I said quickly, gripping the handle of my suitcase like it could anchor me. "With the room." I was told, "There's no mistake." His tone was flat, final. I blinked. "I what?" "Your boss made the arrangement. One room, one night." He fastened the last button on his shirt and moved toward the windows, his back to me now. "You'll sleep in the bed. I'll take the sofa." "I can't." "You can." He didn't turn around. "And you will." Something in his voice made my stomach twist. Not cruelty. Not anger. Just certainty. The kind of certainty that didn't leave space for argument. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. This was insane. I didn't know this man. I didn't know why Gerald had agreed to this. Why he'd looked so terrified in the lobby. Why he'd told me not to ask questions. But I also didn't have anywhere else to go. "I'll leave first thing in the morning," I said quietly. Dante turned then, just enough for me to see his profile against the glow of the city lights. His jaw was sharp, shadowed, his expression unreadable. "You'll leave when I say you can leave." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and cold. I wanted to argue. I wanted to grab my suitcase and walk out. But something about the way he stood there still, controlled, utterly unbothered, made me feel like I was already caught in something I didn't understand. So I nodded, and I stayed. That night, I lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, my body rigid beneath the silk sheets. Across the room, Dante sat on the sofa, his laptop open, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. He hadn't spoken to me again, hadn't looked at me, but I could feel him, every breath, every shift of his body, every second of silence that pressed against my chest like a weight. I didn't sleep, and when the sun finally rose over Milan, painting the room in shades of gold and gray, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The door had been locked from the inside, and Dante Salvatore had the only key. I didn't ask about the key. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was being paranoid, that he was probably just careful. Rich men were always careful, weren't they? But the truth sat in my stomach like a stone, cold and heavy. He had locked me in. When I finally dragged myself out of bed, Dante was already dressed. Black suit, black tie. His hair combed back, still slightly damp. He stood by the window with a phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian in a voice too low for me to understand. I grabbed my clothes and slipped into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I turned on the shower. "This is fine," I told myself. "One night. You survived. You'll get your own room today. You'll never see him again." But when I came out 20 minutes later, dressed in my conference blouse and pencil skirt, Dante was waiting. He stood by the door, his arms crossed, his eyes on me. "We're leaving," he said. I froze. "What?" "The conference is over for you." "I know. I have sessions today. Meetings. My boss." "Your boss has been informed." My stomach dropped. "Informed of what?" Dante stepped closer. Not threatening, not aggressive, just closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar, and smoke, and something darker I couldn't name. "You're coming with me," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere with you." His jaw tightened. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, something sharper, something that made my pulse spike. "You don't have a choice, Claire." "Yes, I do." "No," his voice dropped, soft and deadly. "You don't." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, turning the screen toward me. It was a photo of me walking into the hotel yesterday. Alone. My face clear in the frame, and beneath it, a message in Italian I didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. A threat. "Who sent that?" I whispered. "People who think you're important to me," Dante said, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "Which means you're a target. I don't even know you." "That doesn't matter." My throat tightened. "Why would anyone think I'm important to you?" His eyes held mine, and for the first time, I saw something behind the coldness, something raw and restrained. "Because you were seen with me." 30 minutes later, I was in the back of a black car, watching Milan blur past the tinted windows. Dante sat beside me, silent, his gaze fixed on his phone. A driver I hadn't been introduced to navigated the narrow streets with terrifying precision. No one spoke. I pressed my hands into my lap, trying to control the trembling. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer." Dante glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "It's the only one you're getting." I wanted to scream, to demand he let me out, but the memory of that photo of the cold certainty in his voice kept me silent. We drove for over an hour, leaving the city behind. The buildings gave way to hills, vineyards, estates hidden behind tall stone walls. The car finally turned onto a private road, winding through cypress trees until a massive villa appeared, pale stone, arched windows, iron gates that opened without a sound. The car stopped in front of the entrance. Dante stepped out first, buttoning his jacket. Then he turned and offered me his hand. I stared at it. "Claire." His voice was softer now. Not kind, but not cruel, either. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm, firm, steady. He pulled me gently from the car, and for a moment, we stood there in the golden afternoon light, his hand still holding mine. Then he let go. "Inside," he said, and I followed him. The villa was nothing like I expected. I had imagined something cold, modern, clinical. But the interior was warm, terracotta floors, exposed wooden beams, walls the color of honey. Sunlight poured through tall windows, and the air smelled faintly of lavender and lemon. A woman in her 50s appeared in the hallway, her silver hair pinned back, her expression calm and assessing. "Signor Salvatore," she said, nodding. "Lucia, this is Claire. She'll be staying in the East Wing." Lucia's gaze shifted to me, sharp but not unkind. "Of course. Follow me, Signorina." I glanced at Dante, but he had already turned away. His phone pressed to his ear again, his voice low and clipped. I followed Lucia up a stone staircase, down a corridor lined with oil paintings, landscapes, mostly, and a few portraits of stern-looking men in dark suits. She stopped at a heavy wooden door and pushed it open. The room was beautiful. A 4-poster bed draped in white linen, a balcony overlooking the vineyards, a writing desk by the window. "You'll be comfortable here," Lucia said. "Dinner is at 8. Don't wander the grounds alone." "Why not?" She met my eyes. "Because Signor Salvatore said so." And then she left. I spent the rest of the afternoon pacing. I tried my phone, no signal. I tried the door unlocked, but Lucia's warning echoed in my mind. I tried to convince myself this was temporary, a misunderstanding, a precaution, but deep down, I knew better. At 8 o'clock, I made my way downstairs. The dining room was lit by candlelight, the long table set for 2. Dante sat at the head, a glass of red wine in his hand, his jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked up when I entered. "Sit." I hesitated, then took the chair across from him. A moment later, Lucia appeared with plates pasta, roasted vegetables, bread still warm from the oven. She set them down without a word and disappeared. We ate in silence. I couldn't taste anything. Finally, I set down my fork. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" Dante took a slow sip of wine, his eyes never leaving mine. "You want the truth?" "Yes. The truth is dangerous." "I'm already in danger," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You said so yourself." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, sliding it across the table. I unfolded it. It was a newspaper clipping, in Italian. But the photo was clear, Dante, younger, standing beside a man in a dark suit. Both of them unsmiling. The headline was bold, unmistakable, even in another language. Mafia. My hands went numb. Yes. I looked up at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. And the people who sent that photo. Rivals, enemies, take your pick. His voice was calm, cold. "They think you matter to me. That makes you leverage. But I don't matter to you. I don't even know you." His eyes darkened. "That's not how they see it." I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. "Then tell them I'm no one. Let me go." Dante stood slowly, his movements controlled, deliberate. He walked around the table and stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. "If I let you go," he said quietly, "they'll kill you to send me a message." My breath caught. "So no, Claire, you're not leaving." And in that moment, I realized the truth. I wasn't a guest. I was a prisoner. The days blurred together. I woke each morning in the East Wing, sunlight spilling through the balcony doors, the scent of jasmine drifting in from the garden. Lucia brought me breakfast, espresso, pastries, fruit, and left without conversation. I spent my mornings reading books from the villa's library, my afternoons walking the inner courtyard, always within sight of the guards I'd finally noticed stationed at the gates. I tried not to think about them. I tried not to think about Dante, but that was impossible. He was everywhere and nowhere. I'd catch glimpses of him through windows on the phone, his expression dark, or in the hallway late at night, his shirt unbuttoned, exhaustion carved into his face. He never spoke to me unless necessary, never touched me, but I felt him. Every locked door, every guarded gate, every silent meal where we sat across from each other and pretended I wasn't his captive. On the 5th night, I broke. I found him in his study, a room I'd been told not to enter. The door was cracked open, light spilling into the dark hallway. I hesitated, my hand on the doorframe. "If you're going to lurk, come in." His voice startled me. I pushed the door open. Dante sat behind a massive desk, papers spread in front of him, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked tired, more than tired. He looked like a man holding the weight of something too heavy to carry. "I want to call my family," I said. He didn't look up. "No, they'll be worried. They've been told you're extending your trip." I stepped closer. "You can't just—" "I can." He finally met my eyes. "And I have. This is insane. This is survival." I clenched my fists. "For you. Not for me." Dante stood slowly, rounding the desk. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze heavy on mine. "You think I want this?" His voice was low, rough. "You think I want you here, in the middle of this? Then let me go. I told you what happens if I do. Maybe I'll take my chances." His jaw tightened. For a moment, Something flickered in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. You don't know what you're saying. I know I'm not yours to keep. The words hung between us, sharp and final. Dante stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the tension coiled in his body. You're wrong, he said quietly. My breath hitched. What? You're mine to protect, whether you like it or not. And before I could respond, he turned and walked out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. You're mine to protect. Not mine. Not a claim. A responsibility. But it felt like both. Around midnight, I heard voices. Angry voices, echoing from somewhere below. I slipped out of bed and crept to the door, easing it open. The hallway was dark, but the voices were clearer now. Dante, and someone else. I crept toward the staircase, staying in the shadows. Can't keep her here forever, the other man was saying. His voice was older, rough. It's been a week. They know she's here. They're waiting. Let them wait. Don't. I said no. She's a liability. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Say that again, Dante said, his voice deadly soft. I'm trying to protect you. Then stop talking. Footsteps. The sound of a door slamming. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding. A moment later, Dante appeared at the top of the staircase. He saw me immediately. Go back to your room, Claire. Who was that? No one you need to worry about. He called me a liability. Dante's expression darkened. He's wrong. Am I? I stepped forward, my voice trembling. Because it sounds like I'm putting you in danger just by being here. You're in danger because of me. His voice cracked, just slightly. Just enough for me to hear it. That's the difference. I stared at him, and for the first time, I saw past the coldness, past the control. I saw guilt. Dante. Go to bed, Claire. He turned and walked away, and I stood there, alone in the dark, wondering if I'd ever really understand the man who'd locked me in his world. The next morning, everything changed. I woke to the sound of movement, footsteps, voices, the slam of car doors. I threw on a robe and hurried to the window. 3 black cars were parked in the courtyard. Men in suits moved in and out of the villa, their expressions grim, and in the center of it all stood Dante, his phone pressed to his ear, his jaw tight. Something was wrong. I didn't wait. I ran downstairs, my bare feet cold against the stone floor. Lucia intercepted me in the hallway. Signorina, you should stay in your room. What's happening? Signor Salvatore will explain. Where is he? She hesitated. Then she nodded toward the courtyard. I pushed past her. Dante stood near one of the cars, speaking to a man I didn't recognize. When he saw me, his expression shifted just for a second, something almost like fear. He crossed the courtyard in long strides, stopping in front of me. Inside. Now. What's going on? Claire. Tell me. His eyes held mine. And I saw it then, the weight, the danger. They found us, he said quietly. We're leaving. 20 minutes later, I was back in a car, my hastily packed bag at my feet, Dante beside me. The driver didn't speak. Neither did Dante. We drove for hours, through hills and valleys, past villages I didn't recognize, onto roads that grew narrower and rougher. The sun climbed high, then began to sink. Where are we going? I finally asked. A safe house, in the mountains. For how long? He didn't answer. I turned to look at him. His jaw was tight, his hands fisted on his thighs. He looked like a man preparing for war. Dante. He glanced at me, and for the first time, I saw exhaustion in his eyes. Real, bone-deep exhaustion. As long as it takes, he said. The safe house was small, a stone cottage perched on the side of a mountain, surrounded by pine trees and silence. No guards, no staff, just Dante and me. He carried my bag inside, setting it down in the single bedroom. You'll sleep here, he said. I'll take the couch. I looked at the narrow bed, then at him. There's only one bed again. I noticed. This is starting to feel intentional. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. It's not. Then why does it keep happening? He stepped closer, his eyes on mine. Because the world doesn't care what's convenient, Claire. It only cares what keeps you alive. My breath caught. He turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the wind howl outside. The cottage was cold. The blankets were thin. I could hear Dante moving in the other room, pacing. I thought, restless. Around midnight, I gave up on sleep. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and padded into the main room. Dante sat on the couch, his head in his hands, his shirt unbuttoned. He looked up when I entered, his eyes shadowed. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No," he nodded. "Me neither." I sat down on the other end of the couch, pulling the blanket tighter. For a long moment, we sat in silence. "Why are you doing this?" I asked quietly. "Doing what?" "Protecting me. You don't even know me." He leaned back, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. "I know enough." "That's not an answer." He exhaled slowly. "You want the truth?" "Always." He turned his head, his eyes finding mine. "Because the first time I saw you, standing in that hotel room, terrified and trying not to show it, I knew." "Knew what?" "That you didn't belong in my world. And that keeping you out of it was the only decent thing I'd ever have the chance to do." My chest tightened. "You're not a bad man," I whispered. His laugh was bitter. "You don't know what I've done. I know you're keeping me alive. That's the bare minimum, Claire. It's more than most would do." He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something break in his eyes. Something raw and unguarded. "You should hate me," he said. "I don't." "You should." I didn't respond. I didn't know how, so I just sat there, wrapped in a blanket, and let the silence speak for me. The days in the mountains were strange. Quiet, isolated, just the two of us, moving around each other like we were learning a new language. Dante spent his mornings on the phone, speaking in low, clipped Italian. I spent mine reading, cooking simple meals with whatever supplies had been left in the pantry. We ate together in silence. We sat by the fire at night, not speaking, just existing in the same space. And slowly, something shifted. I noticed small things. The way he made sure I had the warmest blanket. The way he'd leave coffee for me in the mornings. Exactly how I liked it, even though I'd never told him. The way he'd stand by the window at night, watching the darkness. His body tense like he was waiting for something. He was always waiting. On the 8th day, I asked him about it. We were sitting by the fire, the flames casting golden light across his face. He'd been quiet all evening, more so than usual. "What are you waiting for?" I asked. He glanced at me. "What do you mean?" "You're always watching, always listening, like you're expecting something." He looked back at the fire. "Because I am." "What?" "An attack, a betrayal. The moment this all falls apart." My chest ached. "You don't trust anyone, do you?" "No, not even me." He turned his head, his eyes locking on mine. "You're the only one I trust." The words hit me like a punch. "Why?" "Because you have no reason to lie to me." His voice was quiet, raw. "You have no reason to stay, no reason to be kind. But you are, every day, and I don't know what to do with that." I swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to do anything, Dante. I'm just here." "I know." He looked away. "That's the problem." Silence stretched between us. Then, before I could stop myself, I reached out and touched his hand. He froze. I didn't pull away. His fingers curled around mine slowly, carefully, like he was afraid I'd disappear. His skin was warm, rough, real. "Claire," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "It's okay," I said. "It's not." "Why?" He looked at me then, and the firelight caught the sharp planes of his face, the shadows under his eyes, the exhaustion and longing and restraint. "Because I want more than this," he said quietly. My breath stopped. "More than what?" "More than holding your hand. More than sitting across from you and pretending I don't feel this." "Feel what?" His jaw tightened. "You." The word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. I should have pulled away. I should have stood up, walked back to my room, locked the door, but I didn't. "I feel it too," I whispered. Dante's eyes closed, and when he opened them again, I saw the war raging inside him. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do." No, you don't. Because if I let myself have you, Claire, I won't be able to let you go. Maybe I don't want you to. His grip on my hand tightened. Don't say that. Why not? Because I'll believe you. I leaned closer. Close enough to feel the heat of him. Close enough to see the way his breath hitched. The way his control was fracturing. Then believe me, I said. For a long, agonizing moment, he just stared at me. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rough. It wasn't rushed. It was soft. Achingly soft. His hand cupped my face. His thumb brushing my cheek. His lips moving against mine like he was memorizing me. I gasped, and he pulled back just enough to breathe. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I don't want you to. Claire, I don't. His forehead pressed against mine. His breath warm on my skin. You're going to ruin me. Good. He kissed me again. Deeper this time. Slower. His hand slid into my hair, and I let myself fall into him, into the warmth and safety and terrifying certainty that this was the point of no return. When we finally pulled apart, we were both trembling. Dante looked at me like I was something fragile, something precious. You should go to bed, he said. I don't want to. I know, but you need to. Why? His eyes darkened. Because if you stay, I won't be able to stop. I didn't argue. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady, and walked to the bedroom. But at the door, I turned back. He was still sitting there, his head in his hands, his shoulders tense. Dante? He looked up. I'm not afraid of you, I said. His expression broke. Just for a second. You should be, he said, and I closed the door. I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, my heart still pounding, my lips still tingling from his kiss. The memory of his hand in my hair, the way he'd whispered my name like a prayer, it consumed me. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what this was. But I knew I wanted more. Around midnight, I heard him moving in the other room, pacing, restless. I threw off the covers. I didn't think. I just moved. I opened the door and stepped into the main room. Dante stood by the window, his back to me, his hands braced against the frame. He'd taken off his shirt, and I could see the tension in his shoulders, the scars across his back faint. But there, go back to bed, Claire. His voice was rough, strained. No. He turned slowly, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Hunger, restraint, war. You don't know what you're doing. Yes, I do. No. He took a step forward. You don't. Because if you stay, if you come any closer, I'm not going to be able to stop myself. I moved toward him. 1 step, 2. Then don't, I whispered. His jaw clenched. Claire, I'm not afraid, Dante. You should be. I stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. Why? Because once I have you, I won't let you go. My heart pounded. Maybe that's what I want. Something broke in him. He reached for me, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching mine. Tell me you're sure, he said, his voice ragged. I nodded, trembling. I'm sure. He kissed me. This time, there was no hesitation. His mouth moved against mine with a desperation that stole my breath. His hand slid down to my waist, pulling me closer, and I gasped against his lips. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me to the bedroom, and I clung to him, my fingers tangling in his hair. He laid me down on the bed, his body covering mine, his weight solid and warm. His lips trailed down my jaw, my neck, and I shivered. Tell me if you want me to stop. He whispered against my skin. I shook my head. Don't stop. His hand slid under my shirt, his touch gentle but possessive. I arched into him, and he groaned, his forehead pressing against mine. You're perfect, he murmured. I didn't feel perfect. I felt fragile and uncertain and overwhelmed, but I also felt safe, wanted, seen. Dante, I whispered. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. And in that moment, I saw everything he'd been holding back. The fear, the longing, the need. I'm yours, I said softly. His eyes closed, and when he opened them, they were filled with something I couldn't name. And I'm yours, he said. He undressed me slowly, carefully. like I might break. Every touch was reverent. Every kiss was a promise. And when he finally settled between my legs, his hands trembling slightly, he paused. "Are you sure?" he asked again. I nodded, my heart in my throat. "Yes." He kissed me, deep and slow and achingly tender. And then he made me his. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't rough. It was gentle, careful, overwhelming. He moved inside me like he was memorizing every sound I made, every tremble, every breath. His hands never stopped touching me, my face, my hair, my hips grounding me, keeping me safe. I clung to him, lost in the sensation, in the weight of him, in the way he whispered my name like it was the only thing that mattered. When I broke apart, he held me through it. His lips pressed to my temple, his voice a low murmur against my skin. "I've got you." And I believed him. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the sheets twisted around us, the firelight from the other room casting soft shadows on the walls. Dante's hand traced lazy patterns on my back, his breathing slow and steady. "Regret it yet?" he asked quietly. I tilted my head up to look at him. "No." His mouth curved into the smallest smile. "Good." I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "What happens now?" His hand stilled. "I don't know." "Do they know where we are?" "Not yet. But they will." "Yes." I closed my eyes. "I'm not afraid." "You should be." "I know." I pressed a kiss to his chest. "But I'm not." His arms tightened around me. And for the first time since I'd met him, Dante Salvatore didn't look like a man at war. He looked like a man at peace. They came at dawn. I woke to the sound of breaking glass. Dante was already moving, pulling on his pants, grabbing the gun I hadn't known he kept under the bed. "Stay here," he said, his voice hard. "What?" "Claire, stay here." He was gone before I could argue. I sat up, my heart pounding, my body still warm from him. Outside, I heard voices, shouts, the crack of gunfire. I scrambled out of bed, pulling on my clothes with shaking hands. Another gunshot, closer. I ran to the window. 3 men in dark clothes moved through the trees, weapons raised. And in the courtyard, Dante stood alone, his gun aimed, his body coiled like a weapon. I watched, frozen, as one of the men lunged. Dante fired. The man dropped. Another came from the side. Dante moved faster than I thought possible, ducking, twisting, firing again. Blood sprayed across the dirt. I pressed my hand to my mouth, bile rising in my throat. This was what he was, what he'd tried to warn me about. A killer, but also my protector. The fight lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, Dante stood in the center of the courtyard, his chest heaving, his hands stained red. I ran outside before I could stop myself. "Dante." He turned, his eyes wild. "I told you to stay inside." "Are you hurt?" "No." I reached for him, but he stepped back. "Don't." "Dante." I said don't. His voice cracked. "You shouldn't see me like this." "I don't care." "You should." I closed the distance between us and took his face in my hands. His skin was cold, his eyes were haunted. "I don't care," I said again. "I don't." He stared at me. And then, slowly, he let himself collapse into me. I held him while he shook. We left the safe house within the hour. Dante made 2 phone calls, gave orders in clipped Italian, burned what needed to be burned, and then we were in a car again, driving toward the coast, toward a port I didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere they can't follow." "Where?" He glanced at me, his jaw tight. "You'll see." The boat was waiting. Sleek, private, guarded by men who didn't ask questions. Dante led me aboard, his hand firm on the small of my back. We set sail as the sun rose over the water, turning the sky pink and gold. I stood at the railing, the wind pulling at my hair, my heart still racing. Dante came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what?" "For dragging you into this." I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to stay. You didn't have a choice." "Yes, I did." I touched his face. "And I'd choose you again." His eyes searched mine. and then he kissed me. Soft, desperate, full of all the words he couldn't say. When we pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. "You're mine," he whispered. And this time, I didn't argue. I know. We docked in Greece 3 days later. A small island, no name I recognized. White stone houses clinging to cliffs, blue water stretching to the horizon. Dante rented a villa overlooking the sea. No guards this time, no guns, just us. For the first time since the hotel room in Milan, I felt like I could breathe. "Tell me about your family," I said one afternoon. We were sitting on the terrace, the sun warm on my skin, a glass of wine in my hand. Dante didn't answer right away. He stared out at the water, his expression distant. "There's not much to tell," he said finally. "I don't believe that." He glanced at me. "My father built an empire. My brother tried to take it." I stopped him. "How?" "The only way I could." The weight in his voice told me everything I needed to know. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be." He made his choice. "And you made yours." "Yes." I reached for his hand. "Do you regret it?" He looked down at our joined fingers. "Every day." "Then why?" "Because someone had to stop him. And no one else would." I squeezed his hand. "That's not fair." "No, it's not." We sat in silence for a long time. Then Dante spoke again, his voice softer. "You could leave, you know." I blinked. "What?" "Now, today. I'd put you on a plane, give you money, make sure you're safe. You could go home, back to your life." My chest tightened. "Is that what you want?" "No." His eyes met mine. "But it's what you deserve." I stood slowly, crossing to where he sat. I knelt in front of him, taking his face in my hands. "I'm not leaving." "Claire, I'm not. I don't care how dangerous it is. I don't care what happens. I'm staying. With you." His eyes closed. "You don't know what you're giving up." "Yes, I do. You'll never be safe." "I don't care." "You should." "Dante." I waited until he looked at me. "I love you." The words hung in the air between us. His breath stopped. His eyes widened. "Say that again," he whispered. "I love you." He pulled me into his lap, his arms crushing me to him, his face buried in my neck. "I love you," he said, his voice breaking. "God, Claire, I love you." And for the first time in weeks, I felt whole. That night, he made love to me under the stars. Slow, tender, reverent. And when I fell apart in his arms, he held me like I was the only thing keeping him alive. But paradise never lasts. 2 weeks later, Dante got a call. I watched his face change as he listened. Watched the warmth drain from his eyes, replaced by cold calculation. "When?" he asked. A pause. "I'll be there." He hung up. "What is it?" I asked. He turned to me, his expression grim. "My uncle. He's calling a meeting. In Rome." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind that decides whether we live or die." My stomach dropped. "Can you refuse?" "No." "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." "Dante." "No, Claire. This isn't negotiable." He crossed to me, taking my hands. "You stay here, where it's safe." "Safe without you?" His jaw tightened. "If something happens to me, you'll be protected. I've made arrangements." "I don't want arrangements. I want you." "I know." He kissed me softly. "But this is the only way." He left the next morning. I stood on the terrace, watching the boat carry him away, my heart shattering with every second. Lucia, who'd arrived the night before, stood beside me, silent and steady. "He'll come back," she said quietly. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." I turned to her. "How?" She smiled faintly. "Because he has something to come back to now." 3 days later, I got the call. Dante's voice was rough, exhausted. "It's over. Are you okay?" "Yes." "Are you coming back?" A pause. "Yes." I sank onto the bed, relief flooding through me. "When?" 2 days, maybe less. "I'll be waiting." "Claire?" "Yes." "I love you." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "I love you too." Dante returned on a Wednesday. I saw the boat from the terrace and ran down the steps, across the sand, into the water. He jumped out before the boat even docked, pulling me into his arms, lifting me off my feet. "You're okay," I gasped. "I'm okay." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He kissed me, hard, desperate, like he'd been holding his breath for days. When we pulled apart, I saw the cuts on his knuckles, the bruise along his jaw. "What happened?" "It doesn't matter." "Dante." "It's over, Claire. All of it." He cupped my face. "We're free." I stared at him. "Free? My uncle's dead. His allies scattered. The families who wanted me gone, they've backed off. For now." "For now?" He nodded. "There's always someone waiting, always another threat. But for now, we have time." I kissed him, softly, slowly. "Then let's not waste it." We stayed in Greece for another month. Long, golden days filled with sun and wine and the sound of the sea. Nights tangled together, learning each other, memorizing each other. It wasn't perfect. Dante still woke with nightmares, still checked his phone obsessively, still kept a gun in the bedside table, but he also laughed, smiled, let himself be soft with me, and I realized something. I didn't need perfect. I just needed him. One evening, we sat on the terrace, watching the sunset. "What happens when we leave here?" I asked. Dante glanced at me. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead." "Liar." I smiled. "Okay. Fine. I've thought about it. And I want a life with you. Whatever that looks like." He pulled me into his lap, his arms wrapping around me. "Even if it's dangerous?" "Especially if it's dangerous." He kissed my temple. "You're insane." "Probably." "Good." He pulled back to meet my eyes. "Because I'm not letting you go." "I know." "Ever." "I know." He kissed me again, deeper this time. "A promise." We left Greece 2 weeks later. Dante bought a villa in the south of Italy, remote, guarded, safe. I started working remotely, freelance writing, consulting, small projects that didn't ask too many questions. Dante ran his empire from behind closed doors, managing what needed to be managed, cutting ties with the worst of it. It wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. But it was ours. 6 months after that night in the hotel room, Dante asked me to marry him. We were sitting in the garden, the sun setting, the air warm and thick with the scent of jasmine. He didn't kneel, didn't make a speech. He just pulled a ring from his pocket and held it out. "Marry me," he said. I stared at the ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I've never been more sure of anything. Even though it's dangerous?" "Especially because it's dangerous." I laughed, tears streaming down my face. "That doesn't make sense." "Nothing about us makes sense, Claire." I kissed him. "Yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and for the first time since I'd met him, Dante Salvatore looked truly happy. We married in the garden 3 months later. Small, private, just Lucia and a handful of people Dante trusted. I wore a simple white dress. He wore a dark suit. And when we said our vows, I meant every word, for better or worse, in danger and in peace, forever. But this is a Mafia story, and Mafia stories don't end clean. The threat came 2 weeks after the wedding. A message, left on Dante's desk. I found him staring at it, his jaw tight. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. I crossed to him, reading over his shoulder. "She's beautiful. It would be a shame if something happened to her." My blood ran cold. "Who sent this?" "An old enemy. Someone I thought was dead." "What do we do?" He turned to me, his eyes hard. "We fight. Together. Always together." I took his hand. "Then let's fight." They didn't come that night, or the next, but we knew they would. And when they did, we'd be ready. Because this was our life now. Dangerous, uncertain, shadowed, but also full of love. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Epilogue. 1 year later, I stood in the same garden where we'd married, watching the sun set over the hills. Dante came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is now." "Regret it?" I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. "Never." He smiled. The rare, real smile that still made my heart skip. Good. I kissed him, soft and slow, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of a car approaching. Dante tensed. We have company, he said. Friend or enemy? Does it matter? I smiled. Not really. He kissed me once more. Hard. Possessive. A promise. Then let's go. And hand in hand, we walked back into the house, ready for whatever came next. Together,